Today, one division has continued to not have a champion that can defend the title or even hold the title. And another division sees a man getting a title shot who hasn't won a ranked fight over a still competing opponent in over 3 years. And what happens when your latest title defense may end with the champion retiring and the opponent retiring? All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. Let's go. So, guys, we're going to get into it. What's up? What's happening? Appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode. Today, we're going to get back into what we were doing the other day, in which where I kind of went over the current state of the bantamweight division as well as the lightweight division, and we also got into middleweight. Now we're going to dip off into the heavyweight division, the welterweight division, and the light heavyweight division. Let's start with welterweight. So the welterweight division, we are looking at the current champion being Leon Rocky Edwards. You're letting him bully your son. And he is slated to step in the octagon with Colby Covington. I believe that fight takes place in December, maybe, I believe. Nevertheless, Colby Covington is getting a title shot. Now, this is what I was kind of alluding to earlier in my video. You know, the interesting thing about Colby Covington is he hasn't beaten a ranked or still competing opponent, a ranked, still competing opponent in over 3 years. So that says a lot. You know, you got to wonder what dirt does he have on Dana? You know what I'm saying? What hooker did he catch Dana with? And was it that video that he made where Dana was sitting with the girl chilling at the side? I know y'all saw that. If you pay attention, you saw it. But what dirt does he have on Hunter Campbell? What dirt does he have on Dana White? You know, what compromising situation did he catch any of the upper brass of the UFC involved in? Because the man has been just sitting around chilling, spending the money he's already made, and he's still getting a title shot. Nevertheless, he will get a welterweight championship title shot. So there's not a lot to say there about Colby, but when you look at the rest of the division, as I check my Nizzos, I'm looking here, you got Bilal Muhammad, who is ranked number 3. Colby Covington is ranked number 2. Kamaru Usman ranked number 1. Let's just start with them. Kamaru Usman, I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like Kamaru's career is made. I don't know if he wants to make another run for the welterweight title. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what he wants to do. You know, the homie got bad knees. You know, that's all everyone keeps talking about. Kamaru's got bad knees, you know. And then, I mean, Joe Rogan can't wait on his podcast. Cannot wait to tell the Kamaru Usman stories. You know, Kamaru Usman has terrible knees. I mean, he has to walk down steps backwards. That's how bad his knees are, you know. And then followed by trying to get somebody to go get stem cells. Nevertheless, bro, I don't know where Kamaru Usman's going to go from here. Now, I know it's been rumored that he might be slated to fight Bilal Muhammad. You know, Bilal Muhammad, you know, he's another guy kind of like Aljo to me, like Aljamain Sterling. He tends to say the wrong thing and do the wrong thing all the time. You know, like he never really is quite on it. Thus, he never truly connects with the fans. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Bilal Muhammad. I mean, he definitely has the win streak to get a title shot, but for whatever reason, the UFC doesn't want to give him that title shot. And, I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but, you know, he's there. I mean, Bilal's an outstanding fighter. You know, if they do end up doing the fight between him and Kamaru Usman, it's hard to say who's going to end up winning that one. I mean, a year or two ago, you'll be like, undoubtedly, Kamaru would wash Bilal Muhammad. But at this stage in his career, Bilal Muhammad could easily go out there and beat Kamaru Usman without question. So I'm not really too sure how all of that's going to shake out. But, you know, we're going to see about that. when you look at the rest of the upper echelon of the welterweight division, you've got Shavkat at number 6 and Wonder Boy at number 7. Of course, the two of them are about to fight. And I mean, when you look at that fight, I mean, if Shavkat wins, of course, he's going to be one step closer to getting a title shot. I doubt he will get one off of that win alone. But, I mean, he's definitely somebody that the UFC is grooming and would like to see become the welterweight champion, So, I mean, there's that. When it comes to Wonder Boy, I mean, Wonder Boy, let's just say, for example, let's say Wonder Boy beats Shavkat, right? Let's say he beats him. Let's say he beats one other person, right, in the upper echelon. Even if Wonder Boy gets a title shot, and let's say he wins the welterweight championship, is he ever really going to defend it, or is he just going to win it and then retire with the championship? I mean, at this point, Wonder Boy is he sees the end of the tunnel. You know what I'm saying? Like Wonder Boy's riding through a tunnel and he sees the end. He sees the light at the end of the tunnel on his career. So I can't imagine that even if he wins the championship, he's really trying to go out there and defend it more than one time, if he even wants to take a fight after winning it. I kind of feel like winning it is his crown achievement of his career, and he would then retire right after. So the welterweight division is in a weird space, because no one really wants to see Kobe get the belt, because I doubt, and this was also the MMA Guru talked about this, that if Kobe Covington wins the belt, I mean, is he ever really even going to defend it? I mean, Kobe definitely has that cheat code of he's only looking to have big fights. And, of course, this fight gets him the championship if he wins. But, I mean, he's calling out Sean Strickland. He's talking crazy to a lot of different people. Islam Makhachev. So, I don't really see Kobe fighting the upper echelon of the welterweight division if he wins the belt. So, welterweight is kind of in a really weird space, so to speak, because you have Leon, who is, a champion that is willing to defend his title. I believe that the only reason you've seen him out of the octagon for this long is I just feel like he just didn't want to fight Kobe Covington and didn't feel like he was deserving of the title shot. But the UFC came with those zeros on that Chizek, and so now Leon Edwards is going to fight Kobe Covington. So, I don't really know what's going to happen with this division. I don't know. There's too many old guards at the top of the welterweight division. Like Kamaru, I feel like is on his way out. Wonder Boy is on his way out. And Shavkat hasn't made it to the top yet. Bilal is unlikable, and so I don't know where he's going to go. So it's just a really strange division right now. Let's move on. Let's move over to light heavyweight. Light heavyweight right now is slated. There's a vacant. Well, the title isn't vacant yet. Jamal Hill is still the light heavyweight champion, but once Pereira and Yuri Prochazka touch gloves in the middle of the octagon, he will no longer be the champion due to injury. He will be dropping the belt. So this division, I believe, is actually looking up with the new blood that is Alex Pereira in the division. So when you look at this, one way or the other, you're going to get an action-packed champion. Like either it's going to be Alex Pereira, who literally deads people with his left hook and sends them to the land of wind and ghosts. When he hits people with that left hook, it's like you could lay out a magic carpet and just gently place his opponent's body on top of the magic carpet, and it floats off into the distance, and Alex Pereira is declared the winner. That's pretty much Alex Pereira fight, right? Yuri Prochazka is a wild man. I mean, this dude, Yuri Prochazka seems like a guy that would be fighting in like a tar pit somewhere, you know what I'm saying? He seems like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, like he'd be in a tar pit with ropes wrapped around his fists, just bashing people's orbital bones in, you know what I'm talking about? So, either way, you're going to get an action-packed champion, whoever wins that fight. When you look at the rest of that upper division, it gets a little interesting because you got Magomed Ankalaev at number 2. And it's like, okay, he's at number 2. The UFC is not big on him. Dana White's not a fan of his fighting style. So I'm not really sure where he's going to fit in this. I mean, he's number 2. So he's bound to get a title shot at some point. I'm sure they're going to try to make him fight one more time before they actually, try to get him a title shot. But that's interesting. You also got to look at the fact that Jamal Hill, it won't be long and he'll be rehabbed and he'll be back sometime next year. So if we have a new champion by the end of this year, I mean, definitely they could slate Jamal Hill in probably. I mean, he seems to be doing well by, I follow the man on YouTube and on Instagram. So, I would say by maybe International Fight Week of next year, he might be ready to come back. So, I mean, you could kind of slate him in there. Just looking at it, let's see, Alex Pereira is ranked number 3. Yuri's ranked number 1. Magomed is number 2. Very, very interesting to say the least, as far as how they're going to jockey those guys around, to kind of give the rest of the division time to kind of mature and to kind of get another title contender to emerge out of that. But I mean, just with the top like 3 or 4 guys, I mean, bro, you got Alex Pereira versus Yuri. Jamal Hill versus either one of those guys is going to be an exciting fight. Based out of his fight with Glover Teixeira when he won the title, it's going to be an exciting fight. And that's just kind of waiting in the wings once he's done rehabbing his injury. And in the meantime, if you need to, you can throw Magomed in there with either guy. Magomed could spoil the show and end up winning with his slightly boring style. But at the same time, I mean, the man is ranked number 2, and that's his spot. So, by virtue of that, he's got to get slated in there to get a title shot at some point. But, hopefully he don't win. But this is where I think the dark horse comes in at light heavyweight. Because waiting in the wings, just slight whispers. And I know he's in a lot of trouble right now, but don't sleep on the fact that the UFC won't pull that style bender card. That they won't pull that Israel Adesanya card out of their hat. Because you have to look at it. Yuri versus Izzy at 205 would be an outstanding fight. It would be a striking bonanza. You know what I'm talking about? Like, this would be a striking smorgasbord that I am down to see. Or, on the other end, if Alex Pereira wins the championship, you could get the 3rd fight in the UFC, I believe 5th fight overall, between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira. Only now it's at 205 pounds. And maybe we could finally close the chapter on that book. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't put it past the UFC to tell Izzy, hey, Izzy, sit out, get yourself in order mentally, get everything together, fix your life, essentially. Fix yourself, fix your life. I could definitely see them telling him to sit out and bringing him back in International Fight Week of next year, and he goes in there and either fights Yuri or Alex Pereira. And either one of those would be huge fights. So I definitely think there's an Izzy card that they could pull out at any moment and make that fight happen. So, I don't know. That's how I see light heavyweight. I don't know. Some of y'all may have some other opinions, but your boy Matt, that's how I see it going. Let's move on to the last division that we're going to cover today, and that is the heavyweight division, the supposed crown jewel of combat sports, of any combat sport. In boxing, the heavyweight division tends to supposedly be the crown jewel. In mixed martial arts, it should be the same way. When you're looking at this, I gotta say that John Jones as the heavyweight champion hasn't been what I always thought it would be. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it hasn't been like, I mean, 6 or 7 years ago, if you're like, if you're sitting there as a UFC fan, mixed martial arts fan, and you're like, bro, if John Jones could win the heavyweight title, how cool would that be? Well, I mean, we've had John Jones as the heavyweight champion for a decent amount of time now, and we haven't gotten anything out of it because the man is 1 foot out the door. You know, he's ready to lay down the gloves in the middle of the octagon and retire. And he's not really willing to get in there and mix it up against the younger talent. And I mean, maybe he shouldn't have to because I mean, he's really proved himself for so long, but he's not really wanting to go in there and fight. You know, he doesn't want to fight a Curtis Blades. He already beat Cyril Gane, who's #1. Curtis Blades is #5. He doesn't really want to fight, I don't believe, a Sergey Pavlovich, but you know, I could see with the correct fight location, the correct date, I see that as being possible because I think John just goes in there and wrestles him to death and beats him on the ground. But, you know, you could see it. But, I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's been as exciting as like 6 or 7 years ago. If you're like, John Jones is going to be the heavyweight champion in 2023. You know, it just hasn't really been what you thought because he's got 1 foot out the door. And it doesn't seem to be a lot the UFC can do about it. And, you know, I think he really understands that this younger crop of talent, you know, I just feel like even if they throw millions at him, I don't even really think he wants to go in there and keep fighting. You know what I mean? So then you look at Stipe. What is he ranked? It doesn't even matter what Stipe ranked. Stipe never fights, and I'm a Stipe fan, but I mean he never fights, and he's had 1 foot out the door for like the last 3 to 4 years. So I mean, you know, you're not gonna get a lot out of Stipe, and I do believe that, you know, Sergey Pavlovich is right there in the mix once the title is vacated. But I just don't know if John would actually fight him. Out of just looking at these top contenders, you got Tommy Aspinall at #4. And I believe there is a world that if Dana White, Big Money Dana, Daddy Warbucks Dana White, opens up that checkbook and writes a big enough check, I think there is a world, because John Jones doesn't strike me as a guy who's worried about home turf, hometown advantage. He just doesn't seem like he's worried about that. You know, he's kind of a guy that's used to getting booed. So I think that there is a world that if they throw enough zeros at him, maybe John Jones would be willing to fight Tommy Aspinall in the main event of a show over in the UK, which I think would be a huge pay-per-view, and I think the gate of that show would be tremendous and would do big business for the UFC, but I don't know if they're ever going to make that fight. You know, John Jones is liable to beat Stipe in Madison Square Gardens and walk away from the sport, and that's the last you ever see of him. And it seems like to me he's kind of content with that. So I don't really know how all of that's going to play out. Then you've got guys like Jelton Almeida, who is ranked #9. You got guys like him in the fold where John's not going to fight Jelton Almeida. So to me, I kind of feel like we just got to get this Stipe John fight out of the way, vacate the title, because whoever wins that, I'm leaning toward Jones, of course, is going to retire and then vacate the belt. And I think the future of the division is going to boil down to Sergey Pavlovich. Cyril Gane won't go anywhere. He's still ranked #1. Tommy Aspinall and Jelton Almeida. And I think Curtis Blades is still in there, but I mean, I think that these guys are going to keep jockeying for a position of that world championship over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. But it's just kind of a downer. It's kind of sad that, you know, it would have blown an MMA fan's mind like 6 or 7 years ago to be like John Jones is going to hold the heavyweight championship and all the matchups you can make and all the fun you would have and all the publicity that the UFC could get and everything. But we've had it for a while and it just hasn't really been any fun. Like, it's like John's like, nah, bro, you want me to fight who? Nah, I won't be fighting him. Oh, you got this other up and comer that might be a action packed fight. Nah, I won't be doing that. Oh, you want to offer me a whole lot of money to go fight that guy? I won't be doing that either. So it's like, bruh, ain't a whole lot you could do at heavyweight. So, nevertheless, man, I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode here. This will be the last episode for the week. Next week we'll be right back to regular scheduled programming. We got a UFC card next week. You know what I'm saying? We got Bobby Green stepping in there against Dawson. I forgot his first name, no disrespect. But, we got a decent little card coming up next week. It's a decent little card. It ain't all that. But it's all right, though. So, we're going to get off into it. I appreciate you guys for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.